my channel. We are officially through the second trimester and onto the third trimester, which I just can't fathom. It is just so wild to me that we are on the final stretch. I feel like in some ways it has all like felt so long, but in some ways I'm like, oh my gosh, we're just sprinting through. And I feel like these last few weeks are just gonna go by so quickly because we're just gonna be doing all of the last minute prep. So at the time of filming this, I'm actually a few weeks into my third trimester, not too much. So I'm still fresh off of the second trimester and I'm excited to chat about my second trimester experience. With my first trimester recap, I really kind of chronicled it through each week and just talked about what I was feeling, different symptoms, all of that, which I feel like worked for the first trimester video because I feel like the first trimester you are feeling a lot of different things at once as your body adjusts and just like all of the hormones hit. There's a lot of things going on. But for me, I feel like I kind of stabilized a little bit in the second trimester. Like obviously there were different symptoms and things, but for the most part, I kind of felt what people say where you kind of have those like golden days of the second trimester, your energy's back, like you feel yourself again, any sort of nausea is gone, which I didn't have too much of to begin with, but I still had just like this icky feeling and like, I don't know, was weird with food. And so that was just gone. But then for this one, I was thinking that I instead would run through some like different topics that I feel like just kind of go into like the end of pregnancy as just like common questions or common things to go over. Rather than that like week by week breakdown, I'm still gonna do like an overview of the weeks, just like the major things going on. But beyond that, I feel like that would just be a lot to be like, I felt a little bit this on this week. So that's my thoughts for how to approach this video. Overall, as I said, I was feeling like pretty like consistent throughout most of the second trimester. So when I was updating that weekly log that I had, I was kind of like, this is all just kind of like the same-ish. But one special milestone that I did write down was feeling her kick for the first time. So that was right around that 18-week mark I had it. And I feel like it was kind of funny because I really didn't think that that's what it was at first, because I feel like so many people talk about it being like butterflies or a little goldfish or something, and or like popcorn popping. So that's the way that I saw it described a lot. And to me, it felt like a muscle twitch, like a muscle spasm or a twitch or something like that, to the point that I was like, oh, that's weird. I had like a muscle spasm in my stomach. And I think that like after I looked it up further, I saw other people describe it that way. And I was like, oh my gosh, I felt her kick, which is just such a surreal thing. So then I was just kind of like sitting and waiting for it. And then it just like kind of kept happening. So it confirmed that it was her that I felt. And obviously it just progressed throughout the second trimester. I would feel her more and more, and it is just the most magical feeling, just being like, oh my gosh, she's in there just doing her thing. And I do have an interior placenta. I don't know if I've mentioned that at all on here, but that does like muffle some of the movement. So it's interesting to me because I do wonder if like for future pregnancies, if I don't have an interior placenta, how different the movement will feel, or how I might feel like the baby more. But I still do feel her a ton. I think if anything, maybe it would just feel different. Like I don't always like feel the feeling where people say like you can totally feel the baby roll over. Like I just feel movements, but I can't totally understand maybe what they are as much, if that makes sense. But even with that, Dylan was able to feel the baby around 20 weeks. I wrote that down. We were on our baby moon and I was like, Dylan, come here, come try it. And I wasn't sure if it was something that I would just feel on the inside and he wouldn't be able to feel on the outside. But I felt her kick and we both looked at each other and I was like, yeah, that was her. And he felt it, and like that was such a fun feeling. So then the next few weeks, it was just trying to find like those moments where she was kicking and getting him to feel it so that, you know, he could connect with her. Then as the second trimester went on, I feel like I'd be like, she's having a dance party if you want to feel, and he would be able to like stick his hand there and feel it. So the kicks of the second trimester were definitely just like my favorite part of the second trimester. I just love feeling her move. I would say around 20 weeks is also when I started to pop more and show more. I would probably say like maybe 20 to 24 weeks, like during that timeline is really when I felt like I started to more obviously show, but it was still like I could throw on a t-shirt and kind of conceal it in a way. I don't think it was until like 25 or 26 weeks though that somebody in public said to me like, oh, when's your due date? And I was like, oh, or I think the first time somebody said something and it was like, maybe just like one of our neighbors saying like, oh my gosh, how are you feeling? And I was like, do they know? Like, are they asking me how I'm feeling because they can see that I'm pregnant? Or are they just asking like how I'm feeling? So that was kind of funny because I was just like trying to gauge how to respond. But yeah, it was all in like the same week. I had a few people notice. So that was kind of fun being like, okay, I look pregnant now. I'd say those were some of like the big like weekly things to mention. And then I thought I would go over cravings slash the undesirable symptoms, because I feel like those are just parts of pregnancy to chat about that people are always asking about, like, oh, how are you feeling? Like how I said. And then also just cravings. People are always like, what are you craving? So in terms of my cravings, I would say they have all been pretty sweet, which I think is the old wives' tale for a girl, which obviously makes sense because I'm having a girl. And I would say that they haven't been like so overpowering like some people talk about, where like the craving's so intense and they have to go get it like immediately. I don't know that I've had anything as powerful as that, but I was walking into Publix and they had these just crappy cupcakes that I was like, they're not even good. So I don't know why they're tempting me. But they were. And so I decided to make my own cupcakes to satisfy that craving. So that was kind of fun. I feel like I've thought about like donuts a little bit, or like one evening I was like, we should have chocolate chip cookies in the oven. So I would say some like sweet baked goods, and then also just, I feel like it's more of just what sounds good all the time rather than like an intense craving for me. So just fruit, like sweet, refreshing items, popsicles, all of that has sounded good throughout my pregnancy for me. And then I feel like occasionally I've gotten in bed at night and been like, French fries sound good. But that also, like, doesn't that just happen to the common gal where you're just like, dang, this sounds good right now? As for non-desirable symptoms, luckily I feel like I have not had too many, which is really nice. Like overall, not talking about the anxiety factor, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, I feel like my pregnancy has been relatively smooth. Like I haven't been so uncomfortable with anything. Like I've had moments, and some of that has come more at the very end of the second trimester and beginning of third trimester, which is kind of par for the course, I would say. But one of those things is my sciatic nerve. It's definitely something that will occasionally act up. It's not like a daily thing for me that it's really bad, but occasionally I'll have a day where I'm just like, I cannot walk, I cannot move. I'm just like yelping in pain randomly or like gasping. I'm like, because I move and it hurts. And then Dylan looks at me, he's like, is everything okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Like I'm just trying to move. But if I do like sit down on the floor, crisscross applesauce, that's a no-no. Like at this point, I'm just not doing that because it hurts so bad to get out of the position, and even sitting in it. Like there's just something about sitting down like that that just doesn't work for me right now. And then I would say some heel pain. So I've definitely felt like just foot achiness, like especially at the end of the day, and that went on for like a good portion of my second trimester, I would say. So that's like not like a super new thing, but it would just be days that I was on my feet a lot, and I'd ask Dylan, I'd be like, can I have a foot rub? I was never like a huge foot rub girl, so that's how I knew. And my heels will look like red and purple and just, yeah, foot pain. And I got like special slippers that are supposed to have a little bit more arch support to help with that, but I am just trying to be like mindful of being on my feet. But that's most of like the pain or undesirable symptoms that I can really think of from the second trimester. I would say at the very end, some heartburn has started, and I had that intermittently, but I would say it got a little bit more at the end and now going into my third trimester, but we're not talking about that too much. That is probably gonna come after we have baby. Which I know a common question going into the third trimester is the birth plan. So I wanted to chat about this in the second trimester recap video because I feel like by the time I do my third trimester video, like I said, baby is gonna be here, and you know, that will be its own story and like something to recap on. But for right now, I'll give what I'm thinking in terms of a birth plan. Really isn't much. So I am trying not to put a lot of pressure or expectations on how my birth goes, because really my biggest priority is just that they get her here safely and comfortably for me and her. And I literally wrote that because I am going to have a little printout just like with like the quick things, but it is not going to be some lengthy, detailed, filled out specific birth plan like that. For me, just was too much. Really, my priority is just that she gets here safely and comfortably for me and her. Like that is my thing. I think if I have it like too planned out and then it starts not going maybe the way that I want it to, like I am gonna have feelings of anxiety there. So I'm really just trying to tell myself to just trust in the doctors and nurses who do this every day and just know that I'll be in God's hands and that this is something that women do all of the time. But I do know that I do have to make a decision on like whether I want it to be unmedicated or medicated. So at this point, I do think that I want to get the epidural because I don't really have a great pain tolerance, and I am somebody who can be a little bit more anxious, especially in scenarios like that. So I think it will bring a little bit of comfort. I don't necessarily feel like prepared to do it unmedicated. It is something that I want to explore for future babies and like pregnancies because it is something I am curious about and I feel like I could do, but I do think that just maybe having this time under my belt and getting an idea of what to expect with labor and delivery would help me feel a little bit more confident going into the process and doing an unmedicated birth. So it is something that's on my radar for the future, but also I might just say, hey, I got the epidural this time and I felt comfortable. I'm gonna do it again the next time. And then I also know that there's scenarios where you want the epidural and you can't get it because of just like the time frame or whatever. So I am keeping my mind open because, like I said, some of this just doesn't go according to plan and we just have to adapt and trust that, you know, she's gonna get here safely. But at this point, that is something that I am putting into the birth plan that I do think that I want. And overall, I am trying to channel any anxieties about birth into excitement because when I do see those videos of like the baby being placed onto the mom's chest right after having them, oh my gosh, they are tearjerkers. And I feel like that is the moment that you are working for, and that just gets me really excited. So I'm gonna just try to think of that and not get so anxious about the process. I feel like it is a good time to talk about anxiety then. And I feel like this does have to be a portion of this video because it has just been a big part of my pregnancy. I have definitely carried lots of feelings of anxiety throughout for various reasons. I am somebody who does just have general anxiety, but then I've also had different things to like be anxious about throughout my pregnancy. So I think just like all together, I just felt like this was something that I wanted to cover because I know that there's a lot of people out there who deal with anxiety, and anxiety in pregnancy can also just be something difficult. And I don't know that people talk about it so much. So I think just knowing that other people have had these feelings make you feel better. I would say that during my second trimester, that anxiety really did just grow. I think some of that comes from the fact that in the first trimester, I did a lot better of a job of protecting myself from the difficult stories that are out there on social media, which are obviously important to have out there because, you know, people need to relate to those, but at the same time, I feel like I needed to protect my peace a little bit and protect myself because as an anxious person, if I see a scenario that is difficult, my brain is then gonna go there from now on, and it's just gonna go like worst case scenario with things, and I just know that about myself. So in that sense, I think it was important that I was mindful of that in my first trimester, but now I'm doing more research, trying to understand a little bit more about labor and delivery so that it isn't as anxious of a process. But when you start researching some stuff online, you start getting served videos that are related to that, and some aren't always the most positive experiences being shown. And I think those traumatic scenarios that I'm being exposed to have made me a little bit more anxious. So I really want to do a better job of trying to just like scroll past those right away. I've definitely done a little bit less scrolling on social media in general lately because of that. So that's definitely one of my goals in the third trimester, though, is really to just kind of try to avoid those, keep my peace of mind positive. And I think the other element here, so like there's just those general anxieties that do come up that are normal, but I've also just been dealing with some difficult things in my life throughout the second trimester. And I think when you're going through something tough or stressful or overwhelming, that anxiety can just quadruple and just go unchecked and just be more difficult as a whole. So even though I was anxious about these other things that were going on in my life, I feel like then that unchecked anxiety went to like, oh, I hope that the baby's okay. I hope I'm eating enough for her. Or I feel so guilty and wrong for feeling sad or anxious and like I'm harming her or something, which obviously you do want to reduce anxiety as much as possible, but I think I've told myself that anxiety is part of pregnancy that a lot of people deal with. And I think that's where, when I was talking to my friend, she also shared that she felt the same feelings, where she felt guilty or felt bad for feeling sad at times. And I think that that is something that a lot of people go through, and maybe people don't talk about as much. I haven't heard people talk about it myself. So when I was chatting with her about it, it made me feel so much better and just made me feel a little bit less guilty, which I think is important. If you are going through any sort of difficult life situation while pregnancy, it really can be difficult because pregnancy is already a time of like heightened emotions, like you feel more emotional, you don't feel 100% yourself. And then adding anything difficult on top of that, like for me, it really took some of the joy out of pregnancy for me in the second trimester, specifically later in the second trimester. So that really is something that I'm just trying to take back the joy in the third trimester and just soak in this last little bit before she arrives. One of those elements that I have been bringing up in some of these videos has been our house. So it has been not being able to nest. This has been ongoing since October at this point, and our house has actually been in more of like a torn up state since February. We're down a bathroom. The room that's going to be the nursery is all torn apart. Some of our family room is, with like some blue tape up, and it just hasn't been cozy all around. I just have not felt settled. And then we started getting stuff for baby, and so now we have boxes throughout our entire dining room. So it's just like spreading throughout the house, this feeling of dysfunction and not feeling settled, which is not a happy feeling. And I think just like not being able to have her things out and look at her things, like I see other people on social media who have like their nursery set up and they're looking at their things, or they're sitting in their room, and I'm quite frankly jealous of that because I want so badly to feel like connected with her in that way and to get to act on that like nesting instinct. And then it's also just, I've had to stay on top of contractors throughout this and be like a project manager, which I don't want to do while I'm pregnant. And I think just that hope that our house is getting fixed, like we keep thinking we're closer than we are, and then we're not actually. And now we're getting a little bit down to the wire with needing the nursery done, and the idea that people might be in our house doing work while we have a newborn. It just feels unfair, and I feel sad about it, but it has been a true lesson on patience for us, which, you know, it's I guess important going into parenthood. And at this point, I'm just trying to do what I can control. So I'm trying to get excited and nest in the ways that I can, and just making peace with the fact that the nursery might not be done, which realistically she will be sleeping in our room at first anyways. I would love to have it done and settled so that I'm not doing that while I have a newborn and I'm tired. But at this point, like that's just how it is. Some people move right before they have their baby, and you know, they probably are going through the same feelings of feeling unsettled and not fully being able to nest. So that this is something that other people go through, even though ours is a different situation because it's damaged from the hurricane. Overall, I look forward to our home being whole again, but as long as there's us and we have a safe place to bring her home in our room, I'm just making peace with it at this point. But yeah, I felt like I would include it in the second trimester recap because it is just like a very real part of the second trimester for me and what that looked like for me. And then also I did just have my baby shower, which I'm actually wearing the dress that I wore to that, and I'm not entirely sure whether I'll do like a video kind of recapping it because I really didn't get much footage. I was very in the moment while there and just soaking in being with family because I just needed that after everything. So I didn't get too many clips, but I can recap. I have some photos and some vertical videos of it, and maybe just going over some like of the main registry items. I'm not going to go over everything that we have for baby, but maybe going over some of those I feel like could be a video. So I might have that coming down the pipeline. But actually you can see a few of her things behind me. I don't know how well you can see, and I've got her book collection. So I've started to unpack from the baby shower. So I think a little baby items video would be really fun. So on a more positive note, let's do a little bump update because that's fun. So then for a bump update, I cannot believe how big she is. I feel like if I compare this to the first trimester video, it is going to be such a huge difference, but here we are. Well, thank you so much for watching this second trimester video. I know that it was mixed in with some negative emotions, but I think that I just need to keep things very real to how my experience has been. Overall, this pregnancy has been so good, and I just really look forward to a smooth rest of my third trimester and a smooth delivery. So yeah, the next update video, I feel like I'll have it in this regard. She will be here, so that is just so surreal. I feel like I just can't believe it. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.